Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into Machine Minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Manoj Bhatia, VP of Strategic Alliances at Behavioural Signals. Thanks for being on the show today, Manoj.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Let's jump into it.
Good
So
to
look,
see you.
normally we start with the guest's background, and you've worked in tech collaboration and partnerships for over 20 years now. So it's really impressive. And you also have an engineering background and then got your MBA, so more on the business side. How has your education influenced your career trajectory?
Yeah, so I always tell that, engineering gives you a good foundation in terms of understanding some of the technology that you always need later in life or all throughout your life, actually. But I think the business background just adds more to it. And if you think about it, both the degrees, whether it's an engineering degree or a business degree, both are a little bit of an open-ended degrees. They do give you a fairly good set of skills, but they also open up some new doors of, going into different or totally different, mainstreams in which you want to excel your career on. So you could go for a business idea, or you can be an entrepreneur. You can even do completely different things and go into sort of a law degree or go in and business side in different areas. So I think both the degrees, I'm fortunate that they set up the right foundation for me and opened up new doors for me throughout my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And can you tell us about your early career path and what kind of sparked your interest in technology?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I think right in early ages, I think what we now talk about STEM, science, technology, and engineering and math. I think STEM was one of my favorite suite, and it definitely was an area where it sort of intrigued me. I wanted to always experiment sort of with new things. And then it sort of sets the right foundation that, yes, I want to be in somewhere in science and technology. I want to do more research about certain areas, go deeper in certain technology. And in very early stages itself, science and technology and research became more of an interest for me. And within technology, I quickly found out that telecom was one area which, always amazed me. And as to how people communicated across, different parts of the world. From a distant communication, it was always a dream to see like how we could communicate with somebody who is like with thousands of miles away from us. And sort of communication and telecom became more of sort of an ingrained, deep-rooted interest in me. So that's how it sort of, started.
Cool. That's really interesting. Were there any key experiences or roles that you think have really prepared you for this now position with behavioral signals and the space that you're in?
Yeah, so I think I'm really fortunate that I actually did my engineering in electrical engineering, which was actually an area which not only was a foundational skill for telecom, but it also became more of an idea where you could go deeper into having an appreciation for the understanding of signals. And in my engineering days, digital signal processing was something that was a subject that always intrigued me. And fast forward like 25 years now, right, and I'm now still doing that digital signal processing in my current role at Behavioral Signals. And the signals are always part of my life, it seems. So it looks like that idea of going a little bit deeper into how the audio signals or video signals, or yeah, we call it like voice signals. How
Mm.
are they measured, and how is all the data that is getting processed in those signals analyzed and stored and archived and understood? I think that has become a cornerstone of my career in last few years for sure.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a great basis for us to jump into behavioral signals. So, for those who might not be familiar, super interesting technology and use cases, but can you explain what the company does?
Right. So Behavioral Signals is a very, very unique startup right now, and looking at an aspect which is, if you look on the website, you will see the word emotion and emotional AI, or understanding the human component of AI, or you will see these words being used, but essentially we are capturing the behavioral signals measured through the tone of the voice. So it's not about the words that we speak, but it's about the tone of the words, or the tone in which these words are being delivered. That is being analyzed and measured here for the business outcomes that we want. So to give you an example of why these things matter, for the last so many years, the voice signals are being understood, being recorded, being managed, being stored. We also have ideas around how to convert voice to text. We can also use text and convert that to voice. So we have been doing that, and technology has been helping us, but not many times have we paid attention to what happens in those voice translations and in those voice transcriptions. If the speaker who is talking, are we able to even understand the tone of the voice and what exactly are the emotions that are being conveyed through that tone? And
Mm.
voice, or the word spoken, would give you part of the story, but the tone would give you the other half of the story. And so we basically measure, analyze the tone of the voice, and all the signals hidden inside that voice. So if you think about some of the signals that we are all familiar with, are like happiness or sadness or anger. These are very, very evident from the voice that is being heard. But there are maybe 70 other emotions or 70 other expressions which are kind of hidden in that voice signal as well. And those are being measured more by, the gaps between the words, the modulation, the pitch, the prosody of those. There are lots of those tonal voice analytic parameters, I would say, that are being measured to really understand what's going on when these conversations are being analyzed. And that's what our company does. It uses that, and uses that for good customer experience. It uses that for better health and wellness and counseling. It uses that for understanding deep fake. It uses that for understanding what is real versus what is fake.
Yeah,
Is somebody conveying the emotions, the signals in the right way, or is it something suspicious that is happening?
that is extremely cool. I was going to ask you what drew you to join the company and what kind of excites you about it, but I mean, it's kind of right there in in the
So
use.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good question. One of the big reasons why I was drawn into this company was more of my experience in CX, on the customer experience side of things. And prior to joining this company, I worked in other companies who were pretty much leaders in customer experience, whether it was in outbound communications at Acuon, or at 911 communications at Intrado, or at Verizon, which is obviously a telecom carrier, and obviously a very solid foundation at Cisco, where I learned not only unified communications and collaboration, but also customer experience side of things. So based on that foundational experience in customer care, how the call centers operate, what is the interaction that happens, what is interaction between the agent and the customer, how are those interactions or those conversations becoming more intelligent, what can we do to improve that conversation, and how can we improve our customer experience outcomes. Those were the foundational skills that I had, which became a guiding stone for me, foundational stone for me to be at Behavioral Signals. And also, like, my understanding of the industry and the work that I do mostly in partnerships and alliances. that actually helped in opening some new doors of conversations as to who would be the companies that we should be partnering with,
Mm.
or having some joint ventures, or even looking at sort of collaborating with them in a co-selling motion. So I'm glad that this opportunity worked out and it became more of an interest, leveraging my skills in CX, and then obviously my interest in telecom and AI space.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like an ideal fit, really, with your past experience and interest areas for sure. How does your behavioral signals technology differ from anything else in the market? Because I'm not too familiar with the many others.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, most of the companies that actually are in this space and who talk about voice and talk about AI are actually using many different language models, and they're actually either converting voice to text or converting text to voice, or just monitoring the voice signals, drawing some inferences around it, trying to find out the intent of the signal, or the intent of what the words are being, what words are being supposed to do. So I think the difference between us and many other, technologies and solutions in the market is that we're, as I said before, we're understanding the tonal voice more than the actual voice. We're understanding the tones behind the actual words. So there are a few companies who are actually also, investigating and exploring this space. Some of them are coming from, healthcare industry, and they're wearing that healthcare hat in trying to understand the behavior or the emotions of a patient or a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
Some of them are coming from this angle of like, I want to just improve my customer experience. So there are it depends on where you are coming from, or what exactly are those customer problems that are most relevant for you to solve. And so it becomes very critical that these technologies take shape. Sometimes they take shape from where they are originating from. And so most of our competitors and companies who are in this space either are getting very strong in, say, financial services market, or they're getting stronger in healthcare market, or they're looking at education and wellness. So there are different angles to it. But we are very excited about the possibilities here, and we have our doors open for all kinds of customers and opportunities. Obviously, the number one priority is obviously in banking and financial services industry, because you not only want to improve the experience there, but you also have ideas around cybersecurity and deep fake protection, and kind of analyzing the voice signals in a much better way.
That's huge. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone can relate to having the robo dialer kind of fake AI voices calling you and stuff like that. And I can only imagine on the banking and fraud side how crazy that stuff must be. So having a system like this
Yeah,
must be hugely beneficial.
yeah, absolutely. I think, you must be hearing about these, security breaches in the last few months. Some of the systems not really operating at their, the way they are supposed to. And it's all happening because of some of the new things that have been introduced into the software stack, we call it, right? Like every CIO of an enterprise company is actually looking at the amount of technology that they have to not only embrace, but they also have to use it and
Mm,
adopt it in the right way. And so if they were having some old legacy systems and now they're adopting new technologies, and if there are multiple moving parts with like 10 different technology widgets and vendor products coming into the stack, the overall transformation journey, we call it digital transformation journey of adopting these new technologies becomes very complex. And so you always have some cracks in the wall somewhere, and some security breaches are happening. There's some vulnerabilities which are there, and you try your best, obviously, to make it as robust and as solid as possible, but still there's always some room for improvement.
Very cool. So I can think of, I mean, obviously our show is focused a lot around like robotics, AI, hard tech as well. So I can think of a bunch of other use cases for this technology when now we're trying to see, or we're seeing a lot of companies trying to build general purpose humanoid robots that are supposed to be like home helpers and things like that. Or we've got ones that are already out there, like embodied AI's Moxie that helps children, right? Like whether they're dealing with something, whether it's a learning disability or something with emotions or something like that, being able to pick up sentiment would be huge, right? If there's something in the future supposed to be general purpose. But then I was also thinking about like law enforcement, you know, when you're interviewing people or depositions or whatever it may be on the legal side, there must be a use case there. Are those things that you guys have explored as well, or has there been interest in that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm glad that you asked this question because it is very fresh in my memory. In the last few weeks, we actually worked with a few customer opportunities where the customer was actually from law enforcement or defense or areas where you do have highest possible cybersecurity and defense security and government security guidelines. So you do see a use case there. A very classic and obvious use case would be that I don't want my law enforcement police officers or people who are on the street to be in a risky or a dangerous position. So they need to have a better handle on understanding the client or the person who is on the street or is in a situation that can create danger for them. So one way is that you understand the voice that is being spoken. The other way is that is there any other alert that can happen that can give me a heads up that this voice that I'm hearing is actually leading to trouble, right? Think about from a 911 dispatch, system where you were getting calls every day, and if you have a better handle on who is calling and what exactly is happening behind the scenes, you would be in a better situation to take good action. Same thing from the other side as well, that if you're a law enforcement officer, you do want to make sure that your behavior and is also being tracked and measured at times. You see those dash cams and video
Yeah.
cameras all the time, but if you have a better handle on the voice and the tone and the quality of voice in terms of what is being talked and spoken, then that would be another added plus to the overall scheme of things. And so we have definitely seen interest in people asking for these things and asking for help that can you give us can your software give us some heads up, can it give us some alerts, can we be better prepared on these things? And so I think those are very, very good positive business outcomes that we are looking at.
That's, yeah, amazing, amazing. I could, yeah, I'm just sitting here, I've got like the wheels turning, thinking about other use cases, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. um,
Yeah.
from this, I guess a question that I asked you before when we were preparing for this call as well, which I thought was super interesting, if you can share or are okay to share, but language obviously is a concern, cultural backgrounds a concern. I don't want to say concern actually, but I guess an input to consider, where if English isn't someone's first language, or if they're speaking in a different language, cultural elements. My wife and I always used to bump heads about, I'm from England, everything, I'm very monotone, I'm not as expressive, whereas she's Hispanic and American, so we've got a double whammy there.
More emotional, more
Exactly.
more modulations in the voice for sure, right? Yeah.
Exactly. How do you take those kind of inputs and data into, if it's someone that obviously it might be voice you're hearing for the first time, right? In a situation, a new customer or whatever it may be, how do you take those inputs in and decide how the read should be, or what the result should be?
Yeah. So I think, one of the things here is that, since we're measuring and analyzing the human voice elements, we are language agnostic, right? So for us, it doesn't matter whether you're talking in Spanish or in German or in, English or Chinese. We would we are looking at the tones. Now, one can argue that, well, a tone in, say, German language versus a tone in cannot be the same as a tone in, say, Spanish language, right? So how do you really measure the emotion behind it or the signal behind it? And so for that, my answer is that, we this is not really something that can be developed in a day or so, right? There is a lot of research that has gone, and in fact, the stuff that we're talking about and deploying and our customers are using it today was developed in academia and science labs in University of Southern California almost like 7 years back, right? So this is 8 years back. So this is like a lot of deep research that actually started in university labs, and though you can say the model that we created, which actually analyzes and does everything around it, had to be refined and improved as the days went by. And so it's all about the model, how mature that model is, how accurate that model is, and how much it is used. And so the more you use, the more the better the model becomes. And so if you look at the language differences and obviously some cultural differences which are baked into the language aspect, all these are in a sense inputs to our system, right? Into to our
Yeah.
model. And the more uh, those inputs come in, the more processing happens, the more understanding happens, and the more mature the model becomes. So if you look at the last, what, 7 to 8 years of journey, that that maturity curve, and the research which was put in 7 years back, is now in at that stage where it is ready for prime time, right? Now add to that the new technology hype around AI and the language processing models that have come in. Large language models, as we know, are there. There's sort of generative AI. There are ideas around how to predict. So a lot of good things that have come now are now adding to that already mature model. So I always tell my customers that we're not really a Gen AI company who is using an off-the-shelf model and doing this tonal voice analytics. And it's not that, hey, we were born like a couple of years back and we crunched these models and we generated this output and look how fancy this output is. This is some deep down research which was built in. The model has matured over a period of time. It can absolutely take some advantage from the new developments and new technologies that have come into the limelight today. But essentially, the core technology is still the same, and it has that modeling and the core technology was pre Gen AI
Yeah.
hype, right? So we are only using that model and absolutely taking some help from the current models and current technology widgets. But the research behind that and the deep down modeling behind that is not something new. It's been there for a while, and we have improved it to such an extent that we can understand the subtle nuances of um, culture, the intonations, and the modulations of voice, and pay attention to the differences in different languages. So I
Yeah.
think that part is good, and I'm happy to say that some of our very strong AI ML engineering team is actually in Greece. So if you look at our website, you will see we have a very strong presence in Greece, and so they are at on a different sort of language, different culture, and have an exposure to a different set of languages altogether. And so between US and Greece and exposure to the deep down modeling, I think we have a very good handle on multiple languages and the understanding of those subtle differences in the culture as well. So I think that sort of gives us the confidence of being a very good diverse modeling technique that we developed.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, another example of why diversity is so key when you're building out technology, especially something like this. And I'm glad that you
Right.
highlighted as well how long the technology has been in
Yes.
production or in development, because it's a very good distinction to make. There's obviously been a lot of hype for AI and a lot of new eyeballs, new companies, new dollars flowing in, but something
Yes.
like this can't be turned on overnight, and you need underlying research and a foundation to
Yeah.
build.
Yeah. And, as I said, the more you use it, the more exposure you get, the more mature the model becomes, the more you learn from this process.
Yeah,
And it sort of, just adds to the whole equation all the time. And we're glad that, people are getting a taste of it and exploring it. And some use cases we can't even imagine that, well, this is also a possibility, right? And so there's some, they call it the cliched term, the art of the possible, right? So that's the thing here. Like, you have a technology which is very cool, but it can open up some new doors which you have probably never imagined that it could
yeah.
do. Right?
Interesting. So your role, VP of Strategic Alliances, you've got some key primary responsibilities. You mentioned about there, like some partners and things that you want to get into. So if you could share a bit about that, and then also, I'm curious how you feel your technical background is beneficial to a role like this, because obviously you're dealing with quite a technical
Yeah.
product.
Yeah. So my my role from leading the alliances and partnerships um, is actually very critical for success of this organization. One thing is that our technology and our solution is not something that people can just, use it in isolation in a big bank. Think of a big bank who wants to use this technology. Our technology, they will not really come to us and say, "Hey, we want to buy your technology and put it in our bank from tomorrow onwards." We're a small company. We have a very unique piece of software. What it does is it does have to attach to a existing technology stack of customer care and customer experience, right? So all big organizations, large enterprises do have a customer care software platform, and so our solution is bolted onto them or embeds in their software, right? So we do need very critical partnerships with companies who actually manage the entire customer experience, customer
Mm.
care, call centers, BPOs, business process outsourcing. So if we have partners who actually are managing those platforms, then they will be excited about us as to how they will fit in our solution into their existing platform so that they can give that value add services. That's one part of the equation where you actually work with large banks, large enterprises, large customers who have a bigger footprint, thousands of customer care people taking calls, addressing human requests. There's another aspect where you actually have small businesses or even an individual small business, you can say, or a medium-sized business, or people who are just experimenting with new things. And so for that, our solution, we have another solution where we are actually giving a set of APIs, the application programming interfaces, and the model, and we are asking them that, look, if you are technical and you have some DIY or do-it-yourself kind of capabilities, here is the API. Put it in your system and play with it, and see how you can take advantage of it and how you can, customize it. We will obviously do some hand holding for you, help you in getting up to speed. We will make sure that our technology works with your requirements, but essentially it's your technology that you have to run and manage on a daily basis, and obviously tailor it to the use case or the problem that you really want to solve. So we have two different business models of engagement, and from a partnership and alliances perspective, both of them have a different motion, right? One is where you need large system integrators, resellers, large technology vendors, and build that alliances or build that partnership framework with them. Things will take time there to mature and solidify that partnership. And then there's another partnership angle where you actually work with smaller and mid-sized companies where you may need some reseller or a very, I would say like a tier two, tier three system integrator or maybe the customer themselves. It's not really a partnership, but more like a customer really saying that, yeah, I do have a fairly good technical team, or I do work with an IT system integrator, and so if you can partner with them, then we are good. And that partner might be a very small no-name company, but who is actually very important for the customer, right? So we have those, SMB mid-market type of IT resellers who are actually important partners for us as well.
Love that. Very cool. Very cool. It's nice that you've got both sides of it and both options for your partnerships and also customers. Let me throw a few questions at you before we begin to wrap, because outside of behavioral signals and just industry in general, are there any trends or things that you're pretty interested in AI or tech industry today that you think will significantly impact the industry over the next few years, or that you've kind of got your eye on?
Yeah, so I think we are all in that AI hype cycle, and you must have seen the word, AI everywhere. All business conferences, meetings, talks are always embedded with this term AI. There is definitely a very clear hype there. Now, I personally look at this from this angle that every time a new technology is introduced, there is hype, and there is obviously excitement around that. Then you actually go high up on that excitement, and then you sort of plateau, or sometimes that interest will dwindle down, and you will be in that trough of disillusionment, they call
Yeah.
it, and you have to wait for some time for that technology to sort of solidify and mature. Maybe people found some gaps, or some pitfalls in adopting the new technology, and so there is a pause period in between, and then things mature, and then again it picks up. So right now, what I'm doing and tracking from Gen AI and AI perspective is that we're obviously in that hype cycle. We want more and more people to use and adopt. So we're in that excitement phase, and it's sort of going up, but we might soon see some slowdown and some disillusionment there, that, well, maybe this is what it needs to happen, or this AI project that we started didn't really give us the results that we wanted, or it was a bad return on investment, or didn't really give us what they want. So we would see a bit of that, and we might be even seeing now that there's some sort of slowdown in that, or I would call it like a pause moment. But it the technology is promising. I don't think there is any argument or any debate on that piece, that, well, this is not a good technology, or this is not really worth it, or this is not really worth the time to invest in. Let's focus on something else. I don't think that there is that debate is happening there. The debate is more on the idea that, well, who has become more successful in adopting these? What are the success stories? What are the things that we should be watching, or what are the pitfalls there? Like, so how do we prepare ourselves in adopting these new technologies? And so on
Yeah.
AI side, I think that's the key, and it's not unusual. I think people should also realize that this is not something which is unusual, that there is a trend that goes up in terms of excitement and adoption, then a little bit of a slowdown, and then again it goes up. But there's no doubt that this is a disruptive technology, and it will make an impact, and it has already made a lot of impact in our life. And from business perspective, in all parts of the business are definitely impacted by it.
Definitely. I'm glad you said all of that. And from an ethical standpoint, obviously AI is having an increasing role here in our everyday life, and even, with behavioral signals, analyzing human behavior and sentiment and stuff like that. What ethical considerations do you think need more attention, whether it's with
Yes.
that or...
So I think, I mentioned that in my earlier part of the conversation, the idea of this deep fake thing, right? So people are using technology for certain, nefarious activities. You can do some fraud, you can do some, cheating on people. So that kind of, idea of taking some new technology widget, make it to work for your benefit, and using it in a dangerous way. That kind of a risk, or I would say the fraud detection piece, is something that all enterprises and people like us, everybody has to be prepared for that, right? And so that preparation is something that is that onus lies on us. Now, if you're a business who is offering new technology and who's adopting and who is obviously vulnerable to these kind of uh, fake AI or robocalls, or like some sort of AI generated voice that is actually being used for something wrong or something dangerous, then it's a very valid question to ask, like, ethically, is it the right thing to do, or is it like, where do we draw the line? Who
Yeah.
do we really go after? Or if these kind of things happen, what is the course of action? Is it something that it should be governed by the law? Some governments should intervene and figure out some rules of the game, as I said. So the answer is yes. You definitely need certain, certain discipline here, first of all, and then you also need certain guidelines and laws. But at this, don't make it, don't make the laws in such a way that they are like so convoluted that like UK has a different law and US has a different law, and Asia Pacific countries have something totally different. You cannot do that. You would rather be in some sort of common understanding that these guidelines are foundational guidelines. We would not allow that, because if you look at telecom and communications, we are not really isolated in our own country or in our own island. I mean, we are well connected globally now. So the rules of the game cannot be that different, right? Like what happens in US cannot be very different from what happens in Europe. So I'm glad that European Union has come up with a responsible AI and certain AI guidelines, and they have put that into effect, and they are reviewing that. Same thing is happening here as well, and I'm pretty sure this is happening in Asia Pacific as well. So there are certain rules and guidelines and compliance requirements that are being put in place to prevent the loss. I mean, to prevent these kind of cyber risk incidents. Now, you would expect that these things should be there right now, and it should help in that responsible AI or ethical AI kind of guidelines. But as you can imagine, we're all learning in this process. The guidelines are not that easy to shape, and it takes time. So
Yeah.
I would say stay patient, but something will come up which will be good for everybody, and it'll become more of a standard, and people will be required to be compliant to those.
Very cool. Yeah, it's a very interesting time for everyone in the space, definitely. Finally, before we wrap, what are you most excited about for the future of behavioral signals?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this idea that this is actually um, opening up new doors of opportunity in so many different industry sectors. I was initially thinking that the most relevant use case is in financial services industry, where a big call center is actually taking calls, and it is trying to pair up a caller who is calling for a certain request, and an agent or customer care agent who is responding to that question. And our technology does a better pairing of of the caller and the agent, simply based on tonal voice analytics. And so for me, the use cases and the applications were more in banking, financial services, collections, big call centers. But now I'm seeing that there are a lot of use cases that have opened up in, say, education, mental health and wellness. People are trying to figure out whether somebody who is talking, can we read something behind the screen, like what is happening behind the scenes. So is there anything else that we need to know about the person with whom we are talking? Then at the same time, the cybersecurity risk stuff that we talked about, the deep fake,
Yeah.
because not many people rely on, polygraph tests now. Like, can we do something beyond polygraph plus, or can we do something to complement those technologies in assessing the risk and the fraud detection scenarios, or if somebody is lying or not really being genuine. So that authenticity and the fraud detection piece is another interesting use cases, and that has value in every industry. Everybody should be aware of that. So I'm excited about Behavioral Signal sort of opening up new doors and changing and shaping the humanity around it. I mean, entire human voice element. If you look at the entire world with 7 to 8 billion people and their all their voice elements, and that can be analyzed, and you learn from them in like 100 different languages, and billions and trillions of conversations that are happening. I mean, if you have that ability to measure and analyze the signals around it, I think that's pretty exciting. And you never know where some of the use cases would come up with that. So excited about the scope and the range in which we can operate.
Lots to be excited by, definitely.
Yeah,
Well, look,
absolutely.
thank you again for being on the show, Manoj. I appreciate your time and your insights and you sharing everything
Sure,
about the company and your career. Um,
absolutely.
where can our audience stay up to date with you and behavioral signals and what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, our website is pretty up to date. It has a lot of demos that have been put in. We recently put some stuff on YouTube, as just videos that we put in about explaining our technology. So I would encourage, YouTube videos and our website to be the starting point. We also have an ability to offer somebody that set of APIs, as I mentioned, that if you are a do it yourself and a small company who wants to experiment and explore, and you have some technical hands-on experience, you can take that API and make it to work. So I think the best place is obviously the website, and obviously me. Reach out to me and I'll be happy to help as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you again for your time. And
Sure.
I look forward to keeping up to date with everything that you guys have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this call, and looking forward to some more good times in future.
Perfect. Thanks, Manoj.